order. First thing on the agenda is department head reports. Mr. Alan Bailey.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Before you should have the preliminary report and everything going on about the quarterly call counts, the state mitigation proposal updates, the county's radio system upgrades, and 911 road signage issues. At this point, I was planning on, if you all have any questions concerning that first part of the report, before I move on to what I'm coming for you tonight to discuss.
Somebody got any questions? Proceed.
Unfortunately, I have some handouts for everybody. I'm just including everything in it. It's not going, don't let it scare you. The first page has all the detail on it, but I wanted to include all the quotes. That way everybody can say that it was all included. Tonight, the information I brought before you, I was wanting to discuss two issues that are impacting both the 911 and the Sheriff's Office that we're facing. The first issue is our current computer-aided dispatch and records management system through Motorola, which is also formerly known as Spillman. Currently, right now, as it stands, the servers for the CAD RMS are physically located in Wise County. And Motorola is stating that the current servers are now obsolete and have to be replaced. And I've provided you all a copy of the quote for the server upgrades provided to the Southwest Virginia group, which should be pages 2 and 3 of the packet that I handed to you. This quote is just for the replacement hardware and does not cover the annual maintenance costs that were around $74,326 as shown on page 4. Keep in mind that is what the annual cost was before Spillman was bought out by Motorola. The Southwest Group has not yet received an annual bill from Motorola to see if the costs will increase. However, in regards to our current vendor, which every locality that makes up with the Southwest Group has become very dissatisfied with Spillman/Motorola. Dickinson County has already severed ties with Motorola and has moved forward with a different CAD vendor, Soma. Their cut over for the new vendor was on March the 19th. And I have been informed by personnel that they are far happier having a system that actually works. As an additional update, as of last Thursday, April the 11th, Wise County Board of Supervisors voted to drop Motorola and go with Soma as well. Because of its simplistic usage, customizability, and its ability to have an offline mode capable of operating independently for up to 48 hours without data loss and no additional hardware to keep up with, has made Soma's product be a very positive solution. A solution that I might add that the Lee County Sheriff's Office is fully behind to move to Soma as well. The next Southwest Group meeting is this Thursday. So a question I have to ask before the board is, do you all want me to wait until after this month's meeting at the Southwest Group at the City of Norton if they're going to decide to change, or do you all want to make a decision for Lee County tonight? A concern that I have with Wise County getting ready to cut over to Soma is how long will they keep the connections in place for our current system?
Alan, if I'm memory serves me, the Soma cost that you got here outlined in that is significantly lower than what they previously priced us. Is that correct?
No, that's actually the original. The original quote was for, of course, now it has the implementation for the year and the converting over was 52,000, but after that first year it'll go down to like 30-some
I
thousand.
thought when we first got their costs that their estimate was a lot higher than what we had anticipated and made it.
I know that Southerns and under
Okay,
the
maybe it was
Southerns.
Southern, and I was thinking about. So if I'm adding this up right, the first year cost for Soma with the additional Ezra license and the reduced cost from Geocom for the Geolinks connection, with the additional backup internet connection through Comcast for a monthly basis, they're 177. Total for Soma for the first year is going to be about 66,300
Roughly.
Oh, and then the second year estimate, that's the only thing that bothers me a little bit, their estimated cost for second year. They should be able to cost that second year, shouldn't they?
I don't have the actual breakdown. They just sent me the original quote, but the salesman and everything has said that it's usually about 32,000. After that is roughly. Unfortunately, I don't have the full amount as to what it would be for the second
But
year.
it's still half of what the
Yes.
Spillman is.
And both Spillman and Southern require new hardware, which unfortunately our equipment room is at max capacity right now. So if we had to get new hardware, I don't know where else to sit it but in the floor.
Okay, and I don't know if the board recalls, there's been some information presented on this, what, a couple months ago?
Yes, during my January
The
report.
Soma is a little bit of a different approach than what has been done in the past, not different for today's technology, but different than what Spillman and Southern both have had in the past, or any other vendor on this, in that it is cloud-based, totally cloud-based, that's correct, isn't it?
Yes.
So you're moving to a different technology to access your information, but by having the backup connection, you still have two viable routes to access that information, as long as the cloud storage doesn't go down on Soma's side, which you're still subject to have that possibility if the Spillman software goes down. We've had a lot of failures on that. The Spillman was selected when we first went into this regional approach with a state grant to cover this cost, but we're several years beyond the state grant funding at this point. They did cover all the initial installation, but not the more recent cost. The Spillman costs have continued to increase, plus service has never gotten any better. We've had issues with them really from day one with the performance of the equipment. Part of it was simply because of how our regional system is set up, in that there are 3 counties and the city of Norton involved in this, and there was only two sets of equipment, basically, actual hard equipment. We hang remotely off of Wise County, as does Norton. And then Dickinson County, at one time Dickinson County had a standalone unit, but they had problems out of that a long time ago with
It was the
their
backup.
equipment room, and so all that was moved to Wise. So basically all of our equipment's in Wise anyway. We're supposed to have a fail-safe in that if one unit goes down, the other will still carry the load. But most of the issues and problems that we've had have not been with the actual performance of the equipment necessarily. It's been with the service when there are issues and problems, whether there's a hitch in the system or a hiccup or something, trying to get that issue resolved on a timely basis. It's just become increasingly difficult to make that happen. And of course, Spillman's now been bought out by Motorola and is even an even larger company now. And our experience most of the time with most everything is the further away people are from you and the larger they are, the harder it is to get any viable results out of them. So based on this, I mean, I think the Sheriff's Office is already in agreement. They have seen this system demonstrated. They like it. I actually think it's probably easier to use than what the Spillman is. It will require a little bit of initial training on the parts of the officers who will be using it, and also on the dispatchers.
Yes.
But I don't think it's nearly as complicated as what the initial training was on Spillman.
No.
And a lot of it would be the same, basically the same processes, just maybe a little bit different avenues in moving through those processes, but they're familiar with accessing the information anyway. So, and we haven't talked. He's been working on this report since last week, so we haven't actually talked about this. But based on these numbers, I would recommend that the board consider moving forward with the Soma, because I think, I mean, As he said, Wise and Dickinson have both moved anyway. I think Norton's a little bit hesitant still because they actually still have their old Southern software that they had before we had Spillman, and it's still usable. But I don't think we'll be better off with Spillman. The Soma's not a tested product for us, but we have seen other locations where it has been used and it is working.
Well, just according to the hookup cost, if you went with Spillman, you're looking at $85,000 versus Soma's $52,000. And then according to this, if I'm reading this correctly, your estimated cost per year, there's somewhere between $35,000 and $40,000 difference on operating.
Yeah.
Over a 10-year period, you're talking $350,000 to $400,000. I think that's kind of a.
And one of the key things that helps save the group a little bit with Dickinson County back in January, beginning of January, or maybe in the middle of January, they already sent out an RFP to bid for a different CAD vendor. And they only got one response. And it was Soma.
So, but you're saying that the sheriff
And when,
has
yes, we had a
tried it
demo.
out.
They came down and demoed their product probably about right at near the end of February, beginning of March.
I'll make a motion to go ahead and go with Soma.
I'll second that motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Okay. The second issue that I was wanting to talk about, we've hit on just a little bit, is our internet connectivity issues. Between the 911 and the sheriff's office, the internet traffic has become more and more, and so that through one connection, the Sunset Digital could not handle it. So a few months ago, a second internet connection through Sunset was added. With this secondary connection, nearly all the packet drops that we were seeing due to the first connection's overutilization have gone away. However, a problem that is still existing is the slow upload speeds. With the new cameras used by the sheriff's office, the archiving of their video information takes an extremely long time on our current package through our internet provider. On top of that, the upload limit is so small that Lee County has been unable to use the off-site backup for our current servers that we had recently gotten through a grant. And attached with the packets at the end are two emails, one from Sunset Digital and the other one from Comcast, of their different pricing brackets. And I'm also asking for the board approval to accept a couple of the highlighted options that I've got on those emails.
So where are we at now on these?
Right now, we are at a 100 download by 5 meg upload.
Has that, do you know if that's been adjusted or about to be adjusted?
Well, it was originally 100 by 3, and they adjusted it back a few months ago, around about December, and said that they hadn't adjusted it when I called in a trouble ticket with them, and they adjusted it to 5, but it's still not acceptable for.
Mr. Mayor, do you recall what they told us? Now, of course, they were making the adjustments on their basic residential service. We didn't get into commercial. But I know they were increasing their basic residential upload and download speeds. And I didn't know if that was going to carry over to the commercials or not. But
Well, I had asked in the email to the person there on the email, I think it was Jamie Rivers, I believe? And if there was any changes just this week before coming to the board, and said that there had not been any changes, that those are the standard packets, even though I've heard rumors of other things, but this is what they had sent me in the email.
do you know what kind of bandwidth the video cameras are? I know the video is going to take quite a bit. Do you know how much more that it's actually taking?
No, I do not. I do not know how large those video files are. I've heard rumors of them being anywhere from 8 gig to 16 gig is when they finally come in to try to upload them, and it takes forever for them to upload. Matter of fact, the major was saying he had better success uploading them from the town of Pennington than he did here.
So which option are you looking at?
On the Sunset, I've highlighted 2 of them, the 200 by 20 or the 300 by 50. I feel it would probably be good with the 200 by 20, but I didn't want to necessarily rule out if we wanted to go with the biggest package, so.
How many year agreement is this?
As far as I know, it's just on a month-by-month basis, really.
So if we went with that package and decided we need to bump up to the next one, that would be possible?
Yes.
I'm just looking, your Comcast, I mean, if you're not going with the 300, well, either way, really, when you get into the 2 higher speeds, Comcast is actually cheaper.
I realize that. The only problem is we've seen throughout the years, especially with Spillman, was that Comcast will take their system down without warning, and it'll be down for hours, which is what the clerk's office currently faces a lot of times when they come in and their network is down, and it affects the magistrate's office and the courts, and Comcast is down, and we have no idea when they're going to be back up.
Comcast has a 24-month agreement required also.
Yeah.
So you're saying Sunset knows when they're gonna go down, so?
Since we've been on Sunset's connection, we've only had 2 outages with them that I'm aware of. One of was just a hub station just up in the courthouse, the battery backup didn't work. And the other one was where somebody around the Big Stone Gap area with a backhoe dug up the fiber line, and it just took down not only us, it took down Wise County too. And it took them a couple of hours to get that restored.
Be warned when you're gonna have an outage unless they know they're doing some type of maintenance.
Between the 2, Sunset has proven to be more reliable for our connections.
Well, I'll show my IT ignorance here. Is the fact that the Soma is going to be cloud-based, is that going to require any more download speed or any more? Is that going to create an increased demand above beyond what we're on now?
It may create some, but I mean, right now, I mean, the Spillman is already where it uses our internet as well. It's not necessarily maxing out because it's just tiny bits of data that it's transmitting back and forth. So I don't see that it being any more usage than what Spillman is right now.
Okay.
Is this something you think we might ought to look at a little more till next month? I mean, this decision won't have to be made.
Now, either one should be able to do this upgrade pretty quick, so we might want to just research all of that a little bit to make sure on the actual speeds if we think it'll take the run.
I think the big thing, you did go Comcast, like I said, you have to kind of be set, because it's got a 24-month agreement, and also has a $199 installation too. So you have to kind of be set in stone with them. But if you can do some more research on that and get back to that.
The one thing that I know of, and I've talked with Dane about, is if we increase the 1 connection with Sunset, then we can actually do away with that secondary connection that we had purchased a few months back. So that would cut that cost out when we upgrade the other one.
What's the cost on it now?
As far as I know, I think they're $199 a month.
So you're saying you got 2 of them?
We've got 2 of those connections already in place and everything.
So even if we went with the top thing you got highlighted, it'd still be cheaper than having the 2 for $199. Okay, do some research on it.
Okay.
Anybody else got any questions?
No.
Thank you all very much. I try not to bore you all too much this evening.
Next on the agenda, constitutional officers, treasurer's report. Anybody have any questions, concerns on the treasurer's report?
What's that highlighted there? 264,000.
$264,000 means there was not sufficient funds,
Excluded operating fund.
at least in that account on school funds, to cover the expenses that they had. You'll notice they did have funded, more than ample funding in their cafeteria fund and in the school health insurance fund. But to better answer that question, I've invited Dr. Austin to be here tonight to answer the questions that I have and provide the explanation.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Mr. Smith, to address your question. What happens on occasion is, first of all, the school board has enough money. We have, of course, an appropriation that we're responsible for. There are occasions where we will have this happen, specifically when we have reimbursements from the federal government that run through Richmond. With the federal shutdown that we had a couple of months ago, we're still getting some delayed reimbursements, and I'll say to the tune of we submitted reimbursements March 10th and didn't get them in until this week. So some of those reimbursements that we typically get within a matter of a week are taking up to a month. Just this week we've received almost $500,000 in reimbursements and anticipate another $400,000, and that's a continuous process. It's just taking much longer than what typically happens. So again, no concerns from our side other than just some delays on reimbursements.
Anybody else got any questions? Thank you, Dr.
Okay. Mr. Poe, did you want me to speak to budget or want me to?
If you want to go ahead, I'll be giving you the budget tonight, and he can go ahead and give you a little bit of highlights on what they're requesting.
Just two things real quickly. I know we had a joint board meeting. School board adopted a budget, got that to you by April 1st, and the adopted budget has a request of level funding, as we had mentioned to you, from last year's, this current year to next year's. That would be an increase over of $78,000 over what would be required. Now, it's the same dollar amount as what you're paying this year. So it's no increase in revenue. We're just asking, instead of decreasing by $78,000, that we maintain level funding. And what that helps us with, as we discussed, is being able to do the 5% raises that we're doing, 3% for a year, 2% for 9 months. And what was passed by the school board is a 3% raise for support staff and administration and adjustments to the teacher salary scale. So that's what's been submitted to Mr. Poe for your consideration. And then also the other request that we have is lump sum appropriation. You all have done that in the past and given us a quarterly appropriation. We just asked for a lump sum, so that way it cuts down on the tracking back and forth. But you know, we have been very responsible in that, making sure that we spend what you allocate, and actually we spend less than what you allocate. So we've been returning money to you as part of our agreement. So excited about moving forward in the budget process, and be glad to answer any questions that you have.
So the 78,000, I'm assuming that's just fewer number of students, is basically what.
Yes, sir. It's where our student enrollment has dropped. So your required local effort drops because the compensation supplement for the raises has no required local effort or required local match. So the decline is because of the reduction in number of students. Yes, sir.
Okay. So, and when you say lump sum, are you talking the entirety of what we owe?
Yes, yes, sir. That we would have access to it, not that you give it to us. I mean, it sits there and we draw on it throughout the course of the year, which is an example of this $265,000 approximately. You know, that's something that you cover through appropriations, but we try to be a good partner in the cash and make sure that we've got reimbursements coming in to make sure that, again, we've got almost $2.8 million sitting in our health insurance fund and $640,000 sitting in school nutrition. So cash-wise, school board's in excellent shape. So, any other questions? And as we go through the budget development process, be glad to help any way we can. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else got any questions about the treasurer's report? Next on the agenda, public expression. Do we have anybody here, public expression? Next on the agenda, approval of minutes, March 19th, 2019, regular meeting. Entertain a motion. So moved. Second. Motion been first, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next on the agenda, approval of refunds. Anybody have any questions about the refunds submitted by Mr. Jones?
Motion to
approved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda, payroll. County Administrator reports that payroll warrants have been issued. Do you have any questions? Next is approval of disbursements. Motion.
Make that motion.
Motion been made.
Second the motion.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Delegations. Johnson Farmer, Cox Associates.
All right. Thank you all for having me here tonight. Again, my name is Scott Wickham. I'm a partner in charge of the county and school board audit. Here to go over the results of that here for the 2018 audit here tonight. I just passed out a handout that has some comparative information, but I'm going to go through the audit report itself briefly, which is the thicker bound document you should have already received, hopefully. All right, so the opinion, which starts on page 2 through 4. And again, this is not the handout I just passed out. This is a thicker report. The opinion on page 2 through 4 is the financial statement opinion. And you all received an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion you can get. It means we feel very comfortable about the numbers that are in your report, that they're materially correct. There are a couple different new paragraphs in this opinion this year. The first being change in accounting principles related to GASB 75. There was a change in the OPEB standard for letting retirees stay on their health insurance. VRS Group Life and LOTA plans were also included in that. So I'll go over that in a little more detail, but there was a significant impact to the county's audit report. And that impact did affect beginning balances, so that's what those two paragraphs are reflecting there. But again, this is a clean, unmodified opinion. All right, on page 5, Exhibit 1, we have the statement of net position, or the balance sheet, for the primary government and the component units. Across the bottom, you have the net position. Essentially, for the county portion, the net position is $19.3 million. Of that, about 12.8 is tied up in buildings and vehicles, less related debt, and that sort of thing. So that kind of gives you an idea where you all stand. If you all were a business, that's your net worth, essentially. On page 7, Exhibit 3. This is also a balance sheet, but this is on the modified accrual basis of accounting, or a shorter version, shorter time frame, the cash plus short-term receivables and short-term payables. So you have your funds there come across the total, your unassigned fund balance of $8.3 million, and your total fund balance of $12.1 million. Exhibit 4 is a reconciliation between that short-term and long-term accounting there between those balance sheets. Exhibit 5, which is page 9, is an income statement on that short-term modified accrual basis, where you have the cash basis plus short-term receivables and your short-term payables there. So as you can see across the bottom there, through all the funds, is about a $1.1 million increase to fund balance. There was significant issuances of capital leases there. Those related to the E901 projects you all had in place during the year. That's a summary of the financial statements themselves. There's a lot of detail in the notes and the new RSI there, but I'm going to jump all the way to the back of the report here. I'll go over some more details on the numbers in the handout that I pass out tonight. So on page 176, all the way to the back, This is another opinion in your financial statements. The gas report. The gas report talks about the compliance with the state auditor public accounts specifications and government auditing standards and compliance with state grants and those sorts of things. We did report 2 issues this year. One is the same issue we had last year with needing to make a proposed material adjustments to your financial statements to have them materially correct. So we do have to report that to you if we have to make those adjustments. That's common with a lot of localities. The second one was new. It's related to our testing of the VRS LODA program. One of the new requirements from the state was for us to take your LODA roster and verify the county employees that are included and the volunteer employees and sample those employees and verify that their birth dates are accurate and all of that listing is materially accurate. We had no issue with the county employees portion of that. We did have some challenges in getting information on verifying the volunteer portion of that. That is entirely part of the county liability, is that volunteer portion. So that testing did come up as an issue and is reported on the findings there.
May I ask what volunteers?
Fire and rescue, we have to carry line of duty act coverage. That was a gift from the state a few years ago. They implemented the legislation probably back in the 1990s, and they had always paid that. But about 5, 6 years ago, they decided to give that little gift to the counties and let them pay that cost from now on. So we already have to pay on our law enforcement officers, but now we have to pay on volunteers as well. And I try to take a survey from each one of them. I send them out a schedule showing who we list as their current volunteers and ask them to update that schedule. Sometimes we get the information back timely. Sometimes we get it without birth dates. They don't like to provide any more information than they can, and then they have to. And that was a little extra surprise for us. This is the first time they've ever audited that. So.
And this is the first time that's been in the requirements from the state level. So with the changes I'm going to go over at GAP 75, that is a sizable liability for the county that's also passed down from the state. Some more gifts they've given you there that may not want. But the program itself, we do test sample of employees from both the county portion and the volunteer agencies. And like I said, we were able to verify what we needed to on the county employee side. It was getting information on the volunteer agencies that to feel sure that those people were taking calls and in the line of duty and not just the bookkeeper, or that they're active and have all the information that we need to verify that the information the state has is accurate for the calculation.
And I stress that each year when I send them the existing schedule of volunteers for each department, and stress to them that there's no need to put down an individual who just works basically as an auxiliary member or helps clean around the building. If they don't actively answer calls, they're not going to be covered anyway. But if they list them on that roster, I have no choice but to cover them because I can't verify whether they answer calls or not. The premium initially didn't start out that much. On our law enforcement officers, you pay 100% of the premium. On volunteers, you pay 25% of what you would pay on a full-time employee. But that cost has increased dramatically since it was first handed to us. I think the first year a volunteer cost about $40-some per volunteer to the county. Now that's probably close to $100 a year instead. And of course there's been a premium increase on law enforcement officers too. But that's why I try to make them understand that I only want people who actively answer a call, because it's just a waste of money if we spend that premium and they don't actively answer calls. Even if they have a heart attack at the squad hall, if they can't prove that they actually were involved in a call in some way, shape, form, or fashion in answering that call, the state will not pay the claim. So,
could we use any part of that point system that we come up with that would fall into that category? I mean, it may be above and beyond. I don't know what you're saying, if it's one call or how many calls, or
that would be a pretty qualified as far as how many calls.
It's not a matter for the individual members to deal with. It's the squad has to, or fire departments or rescue squads have to report that information back to us. And I'm just now getting ready to gather that information for this year, and I'll stress again to them the importance of it, and I'll try to do that. It's just, we're sometimes a little bit slow getting our responses back. I need to get the surveys out a little earlier, but at the same time, we need a pretty quick turnaround regardless to get them back in and get them factored in.
So, yeah, any kind of documentation that you can get from those agencies for us to verify, that'd be great. Take care of that issue. That said, I know you're not the only ones that had that issue. We met with the state last week, and it was a common issue that was noted as this program, that there's a learning curve with getting the information, particularly from volunteer groups. So that is not unusual. I know that there are several localities around you that had similar issues as well. The next opinion is the uniform guidance opinion, and this is a clean opinion. This is the testing of your federal programs here at the county as well as the school board. And again, clean opinion, so no issues noted during our federal testing. Any questions about the audit report before I move over to the handout? All right, on page 2 of the handout, and this turns sideways, but I always think it is good to have 10 years of information to look at for the trend information there. So on the far right side, you've got the compounded annual growth rate of various categories there, and as you can see, total revenues decreased about 0.2% per year, relatively flat over the 10-year period. And expenditures are only grown at about 1% per year throughout all that. So that's a really good job of managing your expenses. It's something to watch on the revenue side. As the state and federal funds have been decreasing, more localities have been forced to raise taxes to operate on a budget that balances as well. A couple things to point out on your 2018 year. There are some increase in public safety costs there. It's been about 4.3% per year over this 10-year period. That probably is the largest category of increase. The community economic development category there had a significant increase this year. That was related to the loss on the note of the hospital. When all that was going on, there was a loss with some of the costs you all had booked as a receivable for that. That shows up in that category there. Across the bottom there is the unassigned fund balance, and that's the true measurement that I like to look at for the health of the county financially. As you can see, about $8.3 million of unassigned fund balance there, which has grown at about 11% per year. So that's a pretty good spot to be on your fund balance across the bottom. On the next page, the calculation of operating reserve kind of gives you an idea of what that number means. What does that $8.3 million mean? So if you look at the total fund balance, you have about 12.1, and as a percentage of your operating expenditures, it's about 20% of the total expenditures, including the school board less the contribution there. And that's pretty much right where you want to be. That's a pretty good spot to be, at about 20% of your funds on hand at the end of the year. A couple items to note there. You can see the growth of the fund balance. You can see the school board expenditures have been pretty much exactly flat over this 10-year period as well. The contribution has fluctuated a little bit based on carryovers the last few years, but in general it's been pretty flat. Keeping the overall net expenditures for the county to 0.26% per year over a 10-year period is quite impressive managing expenses. On page 4, this is the debt summary. I want to point out first that this is all of the financial debt of the county. This is more than just your bonded paid principal interest payment debt. This includes the accrued leave, the OPEB liability, the pension liabilities. This is everything. So in total, the county and the school board debt is $63.9 million, which comes out to per capita about $2,476. As you can see there, the state average is about $3,918, so well below the state average. It did tick up this year with the inclusion of the OPEB liabilities, but so did the states as well increased. So you all are below the state average, as you should be. That state average does include all the way up to Fairfax, so it should be much higher than what you all are here. The next page, page 5, is a summary of the assessment. You can see there a little bit of growth in the total, about 2% per year over the last 10 years from your assessment. Page 6. This is based on that trend information from page 2, a little more visual view of some of that information. Page 7, again, pulls from that page 2 information. It gives you only this year's information and kind of an idea of where did your funds come from and where did they go. Page 8 shows the fund balance increase. That's always good to see, and that you're well below the state average on debt per capita there. All right, on page 9, and I've had this page in the presentation for the last few years, and I mentioned the net pension liability, but I always want to make sure that you all understand how much of an estimate that is. That's provided by the state actuaries, and for the county and school board liability there, you've got the amount in the financials is the 7% discount rate. So it's assumed that they're going to make 7% on your investments they have for you. And across the bottom, I have the actual interest rates they've made. So the last 2 years, they've done pretty well on that. So you'll see the liabilities coming down. But for the county, it's about $3 million in net pension liability and about $35 million for the school board. That doesn't mean the county has done anything wrong, the school board's done anything wrong. That is the difference between what the actuaries have told you all to pay and what the market actually did, essentially. So you all pay what you're asked to pay, and there's not an issue with anything you all have done. That's just a calculation of what it takes to fully fund that amount for retirement. I don't think there will be any impact to the county from that. You could see increased VRS rates coming down the line, but they're not going to ask you to write a check for $3 million. On page 10, this page is in here. This is new, and this is this GASB 75 OPEB change. The restatement impact for the entire county and school board is about $16.2 million led to this liability. And what this does, you all had GASB 45, which gave you a calculation of net OPEB obligations. GASB 75 forced you to take one method of actuarial determine this liability. Before, you could manipulate, it's not the right word, but you could adjust the calculations a little bit based on some of your actual ideas. But being forced to use this one method, it makes everybody comparable. And it was a significant increase in the school board's liability and a significant increase in the counties as well. But it also pushed down the liabilities from the state level with group life. That was not previously recorded in your financial statements. So the health insurance credit was not, and the line of duty act was not as well. So a really big change to your financial statements. Again, this is a very significant estimate. You can see there the estimates based on discount rates. With those, if you do not have enough funds on hand in your investments, you calculate it at the 20-year bond rate. So that's why there's different discount rate for some of those programs. But in general, it's a very significant estimate. And the total for the county is about $2.3 million and about $14 million for the school board. Again, a big part of the county is that line of duty act, estimated liability by the actuaries. And again, the health insurance OPEB is allowing retirees to stay on your health insurance. You've had that plan for a while. The county actually hires the actuary for that part. And the group life, health insurance credit, and line of duty act is hired by the state, and they provide those reports to us.
And while you're there, I just want to add this in, especially on the health insurance, the other post-employment benefits of health insurance. The county does not pay any of the costs if a retired employee elects to continue to participate in our health insurance through the group plan. It's solely at the retiree's cost, 100% of it. But because it is deemed that they are getting a lower group rate, since they are a part of a group, than what they could normally get on the market, we have to calculate that as a liability to the county, even though we have no liability there. It's an artificial number. I don't agree with it, you know, we pay no cost. It's 100% paid by the retiree, but yet we have to calculate that as an assumed liability into the future of the county, even though we don't pay any of that cost.
Yeah, and I agree to a point with that there's a liability on there for $733,000, which does include some services in that, but that doesn't mean you're going to pay anything essentially. The liability is an implicit subsidy liability, and essentially says that if you all did not allow retirees, you all could obtain a lower group rate, essentially. So you are paying more for the group rate, essentially.
So that's what I was gonna ask.
Yes.
Since they are on it, and when it's submitted for bids every year, I'm assuming the higher age of people retiring is also placed in on the bid, so you're having to count.
That's the calculation, and that's what the actuaries are looking at. But
We probably have 6 retirees who carry health insurance.
yeah, and it's not even, unfortunately, it's not even that itself, it's the ability to as well. So you're looking at all of the people that are working here that are earning that benefit, essentially. That part is being factored into the liability, and not just the 6 that are on it. That part is being factored in probably to your actual cost now.
Age plays a factor, but experience plays a larger factor
Yeah.
in your rates.
Yeah. So I personally agree. I understand the net pension liability and net OPEB liability and why maybe they've been pushed into the financial statements. But I put these numbers in this presentation to let you know that they're in your liabilities of your audit report, but they're estimates for sure and not something you're going to be writing a check for. So I pointed these out for that purpose, essentially. All right, page 11 through 14. We've had a similar report in here the last few years as well. When the net pension liability, GASB 68, went into effect, we were required to do some additional testing related to the data in the VNAV, or your online VRS system. We did have a few issues reported with that. There was there as well. This year was the first year, as I mentioned, we were required to test the Line of Duty Act roster as well. That is included in this report as well for the state. I don't believe there's any necessarily issues because of the deviations noted here, other than hopefully we're working on getting those resolved at the respective locations, but we are required to report that to the state, so I included just so you have a copy as well. In general, the state provides an opinion on the entire program based on all of these reports that are sent up. I've been told essentially that as long as Fairfax gets a clean opinion, the whole state does. But we are required to report those, so I did include it pretty well. All right, on the page 15, 16, and 17, we have your management recommendations for the year. Just a few minor things there to look at. I didn't plan to go over these in detail. Some of these are state specifications for us to look at, and really not a big concern to the financial statements to me, but we are required to look at them, so I did note them as well. If you all have any questions, I'll take those, but I wasn't really planning to go over those in detail. And then the last 3 pages are the report to governance that goes over the new standards. We talked about the OPEB changes, as well as the significant estimates again, the general depreciation allowance for tax receivables, and then the net pension, net OPEB liabilities as well. So otherwise, that's a clean report there, standard report, and nothing really noted. So I guess that kind of concludes what I have to present. In general, I feel like it was a pretty good audit. We had a lot going on this year with trying to get the PSA reports from the other auditors and IDA reports, and trying to wrap up the review of that E911 project you all had going on. So quite a bit going on with the new GASB 75, which added probably 30 pages to the report as well, not just $16 million to your liabilities of numbers that you're not necessarily going to be writing a check for either. That's a actuarial liability and not something that you will be writing a check. So a lot of changes, and some of them have a lot of financial impact, but not necessarily a cash basis impact. But again, overall, it's a good audit, I thought. Any questions? All right. My contact there is on the front of the handout, I believe, so if you have any questions at any point, feel free to let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next on the agenda, Spearhead Trails update, John Lindsay, Executive Director.
Thank you, guys. I'm excited to be here. If you're wondering who the good-looking lady in the back of the room is, I told her she's on a hot day tonight. And that's my wife of 22 years, Candy Lindsay. And I told her Spring's already hit Lee County, so you can come with me and we'll see a little bit of it about 2 weeks early because we're back on Norton and Spring's not up there yet. But we had a beautiful drive. I spent all day Saturday here on a tour learning about the history of Lee County, and it's fascinating. I was going to try to relay a little bit of that as we drive through the county tonight. And but what people don't realize is that the history of the United States came through Lee County. And it was here, 200,000 immigrants immigrated through Lee County, through the County Gap, South Kentucky, and the West. I thought that was amazing. And I went to sites, and I went to cemeteries. I went to this, you got a 200-year-old Methodist campground church that's had revivals. I thought that was amazing. I wanted to show her that kind of stuff. I don't think we'll have time tonight to do all that, but it was an amazing adventure I was on. But I'm here to give you an update on what Spearhead Trails has done over the past year. And I always look forward to doing this and telling you we got some exciting things to talk about this year. So we're trying to improve and create economies, recreational economies in Lee County. We're trying to do that with water and recreation. We're trying to do that with equestrian, with hiking, with mountain biking, with ATVs, with dual sport bikes and Jeep trails. And so we've made significant progress, and I want to give you an update on that. First thing I'll tell you is what we've done on ATV, because that's what most people know us about, our Stone Mountain Trail. We've added another 2 miles of single track this year, and we're trying to promote single track. It makes a great single track trail. One of our single track rangers is one of his favorites, and we're trying to recruit more people this year to come and just try it out as a single track trail. And we added the 2 single track, but really the whole trail's great that's for dirt bikes. I'm sorry, I'm talking language you may not understand, because the single track is for dirt bikes. They're narrower trails, but really the whole system's great for dirt bikes, and we've seen some increase in that. In fact, we saw some ATV riders last week from Canada on your trails, and so I thought that was pretty cool. The word's getting out. We reached the Great White North, so things are going pretty good on that. We are looking at several expansions. I met with Dane last week or the week before, and then we've talked with several people in Pending Gap, and we've identified 2 areas for expansion, and then later that day we found a 3rd potential, and we're looking in all those areas and trying to get easements. And there's not that many to get on these expansions, and I won't go into detail because we don't have to do that until we have the easements in our hands, but we are working really hard on these expansions. Before we did that, we tried 2 or 3 others and spent countless hours trying to go different directions and did not find success on a couple of different easements we tried to get, and we were blocked. And so we're going where we're wanted. And we're trying to see if we're looking at 2 different areas for expansion. If those expansions work and we get all the easements, we'll triple the size of your trail. And if they don't, it'll be a narrower amount, and we'll continue to look. So that's what's going on the ATV side. On the hiking and the equestrian side, we signed an agreement with U.S. Forest to open Cave Springs. Last year, this fall, we fixed the dam problem they had. We removed the 4 bridges that were falling apart. We applied with the Eastman Foundation for a grant and won it for $62,000. We pledged about $30,000 of our labor and equipment to help make that about a $9,000 project to improve Cave Springs, but also with Keokee Lake. And so what you'll see us do over the next month, get it open by May 15th, is that we'll restore the beach. We'll bring in some sand, we'll clean out the pond. We'll restore that to as good a condition as it's ever been in, I hope. We'll be fixing all the water problems, all the electrical problems, getting the campground up. We're having some trouble finding a camp post, but I think they found one. They haven't settled on one yet, but they got an applicant, and they're going through that process. So we hope that works out really good. We also already improved a lot of the trails at Cave Springs, and we blazed all the trails at Cave Springs. We blazed and fixed all the trails on the Stone Mountain Trail from Cave Springs outside the wilderness area. We fixed the ones in the wilderness area, but we can't blaze them by regulation. But once you get to a certain pass all the way to Keokee, we blazed all that. We cleared all the trails all the way to Appalachia on Stone Mountain Trail. We've done the entire Keoki Loop and blazed it. We haven't done the Oleander Loop. We're starting that shortly to clear it and then blaze it as well. And then here on May 11th, we're going to have a great day at Keoki. We're going to be inviting people out to come help us do a litter pickup. We're going to be building a kiosk that shows the trail maps. We'll be putting mile markers so people can do it for exercise and know how far they've gone. We're going to replace a lot of the decking and improve the 2 bridges at Keoki. We actually have money to add more bridges to Keoki if we need be. And we're going through the structural engineering process for the 4 bridges we took out. We didn't know we had to do that part, and that came up later. But we've got the structural engineering last week. We should be starting to build those bridges back. So we got a big event May 11th for the public that wants to come out and help us. We'd love to have you all out here if you want to come and help us. We'll be cooking out for people. We'll be having a really good time actually, and we'll call it work. I like tonight, my hot day tonight. You know, this is work. This is what I do. You didn't think I did much for a living. This is what I do. So there's the Cave Springs and Keoki loop, but there's another thing about Keoki. We're taking 2 of the gates off that keep cars out, and we're going to replace them with horse gates. And then we're grooming the trails for horses. They can get from the road, the service roads at Keoki, all the way up to Cave Springs, hopefully. And so we're working on that. We're going to evaluate the trail going to Appalachia. We don't think it's going to be as amenable to horses right now as from what my rangers tell me, but I'm actually going to walk it with U.S. Forest and see if it's going to be amenable to horses. And so there's a horse, there's a hiking, there's fishing. Told you about the ATVs. Let me go on to water. So last year we applied for one, I believe I told you guys, about a $500,000 grant to put 6 kayaking sites on the Powell River. And we're starting by the Tennessee border in Lee County and working our way up, trying to get about 4 hours between each site so we can have great float trips and fishing trips. We're actually going to be signing this contract, I'm sorry it's taken so long, on April 25th, which is next Thursday. And so after that, I'll start to work really hard on that. It'll still take a lot of permitting and processes and acquisition to get all that done. But we had a great team. Sean Morris with Dana Boone, Soil District was one of the biggest leaders on that project, identifying sites, helping to bring it together and give me the numbers of the grant. The Nature Conservancy, VDOT was a big help on that. TVA came to the table and helped on that. DCR came to the table and helped on that, and several others. And me and I partnered with Friends of Southwest Virginia to write that grant, and we won it. I'm so tickled about that. And we got some money to do some other projects in other counties, but that was a major project, was the Powell River Blue Trails development. And I am so excited about that. I forgot to mention that the Eastman Foundation is actually going to pay for some marketing money once we get the improvements made to market that, because you've got some beautiful assets there. Me and my family live in Norton, but that's one of our preferred hiking places. I'm going to Cave Springs and Keoki at least once a month. I actually tried dry land fishing last week. It didn't work out so good, but I got some honey spots, so don't, oh man, you're going to tell everybody, aren't you? Man, never mind. I'm not going to say anything more about that. But I'm just joking with you. I'm terrible at dry land fishing. But I did do some of that last week at Keoki, around the Keoki area. A few other things that we're trying to do, and I think you'd be interested about. We came up with this awesome idea. It actually started out in Scott County. Scott County has 200 miles of unpaved roads, gravel roads. And we started looking at, I bet other counties got some gravel roads too. We looked at Lee County's got some significant amount of gravel roads. More than that, they got some significant areas to go to. And so what we decided to do, we're going to develop a trail system for on-road Jeeps and dual sport bikes. And we did some market study, and it turns out there's lots of people that want a mixture of asphalt and gravel roads that they can ride with unique destinations. And so we identified 2 trails, day-long trails in Lee County. One we're calling like the Love Lady Gap Trail, and it's going to go through there and some other areas all over the place. And another one we're calling the Wilderness Road Trail, which I learned Saturday that that's got like 3 names: the Great Wagon Road, the Wilderness Road, and the Daniel Boone Trace or something. But you know, that we can fight about that with our Kentucky neighbors, but it's in Virginia. We do what we want, right? Sorry, I'm talking too fast. I actually told my wife I brought her to translate, because I got kicked in the mouth last night at an MMA practice by a boy from Lee County. He's training for a fight in Sevierville, and my tongue swelled up and I can't hardly talk, but I'm doing the best I can. So besides those trails, am I missing anything, Dee Dee or Dane? I can't remember nothing. If I'm missing something that we've talked about.
I think that pretty well covers it.
Feels like I'm missing something, but I apologize if I am. But you've got several things going on we're really excited about in Lee County. I think you'll see as we develop these assets, it'll take us a while to market those assets to get those recreation economies coming. But real quickly, we develop, I look at a pyramid on what we're trying to do at Spearhead Trails to be successful. The first level is we just build a trail, and we try to connect it to the community, because that's where economic development can happen. The second level, we market that trail and try to recruit new businesses. The first level, we're just trying to sustain existing business. Second level, we're trying to recruit new businesses. Third level, we try to get locals that have pride in that trail, use that trail, and hopefully get jobs from those businesses and things that have come to that trail. On the third level, on the top level, or fourth level, what we try to do is make it so appealing to live here that people want to move to our area because they want to be by this great trail system, economy that we create for recreation, that we create a great place to live, and people want to move in, increase your values of property, increase your population again, and that's what we're trying to do. So when we're successful, that's what we have accomplished. And it's going to take a while to get there. We appreciate your help. We ask for the same that we ask from all other counties every year to help us. We like to think that we had a huge return on our investment. I think if you look at how much you give us, and we do employ someone from Lee County full time, but it's not a 10-to-1 investment. It's much higher than that this year. And hopefully you'll have that even more next year as we apply for more grants. The Eastman Foundation grant was phase one of what we call the Trail of the Cumberlands. And the idea is that we'll have a trail, eventually, it might be mixed-use trail, different types, that will extend from the Cumberlands Trail that goes to Tennessee through all of Lee County and end up all the way up at Hayside. We're working with another grant foundation on a trail that's going to go from God's Thumbprint or Burke's Garden or the Appalachian Trail that would join all the way to Hayside as well through the northern counties. When that happens, and that may take decades, but when that happens, you'll have an Appalachian to Cumberland Trail connection. Now, it may all be hiking, it may not all be horses, it may not be all ATVs, but there are different types of trails throughout that corridor. Hiking, we probably don't know all of it, but that's the overall goal and how important Lee County is to us on achieving that goal. I will say one more thing. I'm not really here to talk about it, but it's my Trailblazers group. I was asked by our board to resurrect our Trailblazers group, which is our Friends group. I said what you need to do is get a representative from each county to appoint someone to be on that board. Not the Spearhead Trails board, but the Trailblazers board. So that's one thing they've asked you in a letter, and I think you've received it. If not, I'll make sure you get it from Keith. Our board members were supposed to send that letter to you. So we need an appointment. You have a great appointment for our board, which is Keith Harless now. It used to be Dee Dee, and they've all been great. But we need another appointment for the Trailblazers board that's going to be active, wanting to be involved in recreation, and a mover and shaker in Lee County. So please be thinking of that person to appoint to that board. Second thing, we've asked East County for $2,500 for that board. We asked for $25,000, but $2,500. Now, you don't have to give any pot of money. The money you give us, we give discounts to the residents. With this group, they're going to hire an executive director. That executive director is going to be tasked with doing some very valuable things. The first thing they're going to be tasked with is that they need to have events and rallies and programs in every county throughout the year. What we learned through the Cloud Splitter 100, I don't know if you heard about that, it's a 100-mile race that happens on High Knob every year. Is that that one race, which is about a 2 or 3 day race, you have 40 hours to run 100 miles. My middle son competed this past year doing the 50K. There's several races among it, 100 mile being the top one. And they come from countries all over the world to run that race. And they bring an entourage with them. And they book every hotel around. And they fill up the restaurants. And you can't get in because they want to come before the race and hang out and explore the trail. They want to stay after the race to recover. If I ran 100 miles, it'd be about 6-month recovery time. But they spend a lot of money. We calculated that at $35,000 for that one race. And then we thought, well, let's say we do several of those a year. If we can bring national events to Lee County and the other 7 counties, how much more money would that increase? So we're charging the Trailblazers group, because I got to focus on development and marketing. We're going to have that group focus on programs. So number one is to attract people to bring events to our area. Number 2 is to create events, create service projects, create educational campaigns for trail use and safety and things like that. So that's that group's focus. I like to see fishing tournaments at Keokee on a regular basis and the Powell River. I like to see a regatta like they have in Tennessee on the Powell River. I like to see more ATV functions, night rides and events. I like to see equestrian events. I like to see hiking and backpacking and races be done in Lee County on a regular basis. That's the mission of that position and that group. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer it. If not, I'll get on my hot date. Go spend some money in Lee County.
There's only one question I have. Do you already have the spots on the PAL for the voting?
Some of them we do because they're actually government-owned spots. And some of them, we have 2 or 3 private property owners that we're gonna approach to see if they'll donate or purchase the property.
Approach, okay. Because I know that's been a tough task. Looked at.
Well, we think that they'll be willing to sell a couple, it only needs like an acre here, an acre there. But if that does not work, we'll stick to government sites only and just move further up.
I know the Nature Sanctuary owns a lot.
And they've agreed to give us a spot.
I figured that might be.
Nature Conservancy had one, and then they actually gave that to DCR. And that's one spot that we have, but there's a better spot, I think, close by, it's private, and we might try to get that spot first. If not, we'll fall back on DCR.
I'm just curious, because I know it's been getting worked on by several people for several years.
Yeah.
What about between Dryden and Big Stone?
You talking about for kayaking?
Yeah.
There could be one, you know, eventually, this is the first phase, we'd like to bring kayaking all the way up the PAL. The further you get down the PAL, the more navigable it is, the closer you get to Pinyon Gap, the less navigable it becomes, and then Big Stone, there's still some navigable places, but sometimes just high water. So we're starting out with the bottom and working our way up. And depending on, if we get a property owner that says no, we'll move on to the next group. You know, we'll keep going higher up until we find, and we're trying to get them 4 hours apart, but if we gotta go 6, 7 hours to get a willing property owner, we will, and develop 6 access points. You know, and we'll have that in the next year or 2. We'll start on it next week after our contract's done, and then we'll work on permitting, which takes a while, design and acquisition of properties. And then the actual construction take like 2 months. It won't be nothing. But good question. I thought you were gonna ask me how I part my hair, and it's in the middle.
I've got to quit. You gonna have kayak rentals?
Well, our job, just like with ATVs, is we just create the trail. So we'll have parking lots with access points.
Okay.
Now, there is someone that's contacted us that would like to do a kayak business in Lee County, and what we'll do at that point, see, our job isn't just to build a trail. That's actually the easy part. The rest of it's the hard part going up that tier. So we'll market properties around our trail if people want to sell them, to get people that want to bring businesses in or just want to live next to that asset. But we'll help businesses that come to us and say, you know, Spearhead, we'd like to get a kayak business started, and we'll say, okay, here's your available properties, here's your available grants. And we'll write letters of support and help them try to find the grant money and help getting that business established. And that's a lot of actually what I do, is I help businesses get established along with my partner, Heart of Appalachia. And also with lots of partners like Tim Blankenbecker for your area is great on doing that. And so he's part, I'll bring him in and say, hey Tim, hey Kitty, you know, here's a potential business, let's go get them. Let's get them up and running, and let's make sure they're successful. So there's a marketing component, there's a grant component, and there's a trail component. And that's where we come together. Good question. Anything else?
No, I just want to say thank you for all you do, and I appreciate you keeping me updated like you do.
I have such a wonderful time working down here in Lee County. It's no thanks at all. It's just a blessing to be here. It really is. You got some beautiful property out here, beautiful history, beautiful people.
I think we're fortunate to have you.
I enjoy it. If you do have a question later, or if you have a need in your area, I'm going to leave some extra cards with Nate, and I'm sure he'll give them to you. And just give me a call. I'll meet with you anytime. Look at an asset, look at a possible project potential, and really appreciate what y'all do for us. And our board does too. They express it all the time.
Thank you.
All right, thank y'all.
Next on the agenda is finance supplemental appropriation.
Four supplementals there. That's self-explanatory. If you need further information, I'll try to provide that.
Anybody got any questions?
Motion to approve the supplemental appropriation.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next on the agenda, new business, board appointments. First appointment is IDA, looks like for District 1.
I make that motion to reappoint Roger Sumter to the IDA board.
Motion been made, favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, next appointment will be planning commission, looks like for District 5.
Have you received anything, Dane, from Joyce Wigg? I make a motion to reappoint her if she's willing to accept.
I've not heard her, she's not made any comments about not wanting to continue to serve it.
Not that I'm aware of.
I'll make,
And she's typically at.
Yeah, she
she participates, so.
Motion been made.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Title I Youth Services related to workforce development.
Each local workforce development area is obligated by their grant requirements to provide Title I youth services in their service area. The Southwest Virginia Workforce Development Board is requesting approval from Lee County, which we serve as their grant recipient, to provide these services. There's a proposed waiver and a program design that was included in your packet for your review. All of the services required are proposed to be provided by the Workforce Development Board. So you have the waiver. If you vote to approve that, to simply sign off on that, that'll take care of that matter. I did include some information there that we are, in addition to that, as the grant recipient, we are tasked with having to advertise for proposals for the Workforce Center operator. Some of them are one-stop centers, some of them are various services. And I put for Lee County, but actually that's region-wide. This will be for a 5-year period to negotiate with an operator of these centers. The Workforce Development Board themselves is eligible to serve in that capacity, but they have to submit a proposal just like anyone else would. Actually, I was in discussions yesterday with the director, getting some follow-up information. Mr. Mosley and I met with her over lunch a few weeks ago, and I'd not had time to dig into it, but in looking at it, I had some further questions, but I think I've got those resolved. We'll be getting that out. Rather than task this board with trying to evaluate the proposals and negotiate that, since it's not something that you deal with on an everyday basis, I've asked her to also provide some additional potential candidates who could serve as review, and that's not unusual. They do this on a regular basis. Basically, people who are involved with this type of work from other areas to assist us in that process. But we are required to have the services under contract by July 1. So I hope to get the RFP out within the next week, and we'll probably post that on our website and on the state website. By doing that, we would not be required, I don't think, to advertise the service. We advertise in the Kingsport paper, we're looking at a couple of $100 just an ad in there probably. So I'm trying to save that cost, and as long as it's on the state EDA website, that meets all the procurement requirements for this. But we'll be entering into that process right away and try to get that wrapped up before July 1. But the only thing before you tonight is just the waiver for the Title I youth services.
I'll make that motion.
Motion been made.
Second.
Been second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next under new business is IDA request for economic development funds.
Ask Mr. Fee to be here tonight to address that matter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
How do you look up back?
What's that? I think most of you all are aware, last fall I was notified by England Furniture that they were experiencing some leaks in their building. At that time, that's when they were just really starting to get going, so their equipment didn't cover a large area. Our first course of action was we contacted the subcontractor that had worked on the roof during the renovation process to try to spot fix these leaks. The leaks were persistent. We switched to a commercial roofing company out of the Tri-Cities area. They came, evaluated the situation, and we paid them to try to spot fix the leaks. And they came back to us after, again, the leaks were still evident, and said that they would not recommend us trying to continue to fix the leaks in that manner, because we were just going to continue to spend and chip away at our available funding, and we may not resolve the situation. We consulted a separate firm, and they gave us the exact same answer and recommended the exact same type of roofing system. Based on our consultations, IDA put out an RFP for the full roofing project. We only received one proposal, and that was from Fernie Commercial Roofing. They proposed a 50 mil PVC system with a 20-year manufacturer's warranty at a price of $128,840. The IDA approved this quote contingent upon funds approved from the Economic Development Fund, and we are requesting that this board approve those funds from the EDF as well.
Any questions?
That's probably something we should have done to begin with.
Well, we did, actually, this component was part of the initial bid for services, and in an effort to try and reduce the cost of the renovations, we went on the inspection reports that we were getting about the roof, that it probably could last a little while longer, which there's no guarantee. And I think with the cold weather, the extreme cold weather during the portion of this winter, it opened up some new leaks because of that metal contracting and expanding. And so we should have gone ahead, but we were trying to keep the cost down at the time as much as possible.
Pay me now or pay me later.
Right.
That's it.
Well, I think it's something we need to move forward on, get it fixed. I mean, it's 20-year manufacturer contractor warranty. It's only RFP that you got, so.
Right. And the IDA feels with England's continued investment there that this is the best way that we can protect our investment in the project.
Yeah, we definitely want to do that.
Yes, any questions?
I make a motion that we approve the request of the Economic Development Board.
Motion been made and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you all.
We'll come back.
Next on new
Call me
business,
every time I see you sitting there.
legislation affecting Commonwealth's attorney staff.
Enclosed a letter in your packet from the Commonwealth Attorney outlining legislation adopted by this year's General Assembly, which basically stipulates that in any locality where law enforcement uses body-worn cameras, the locality beginning July 1 will be required by state law to provide additional funding, local funding, to that local Commonwealth Attorney's office to offset the time involved in having to review those tapes for court cases, and also even to determine whether charges need to be pursued based on the camera footage that they see. The stipulation in state law is that you provide one entry-level, or funding for one entry-level position for each 75 body cameras or any portion thereof that is employed in that county, which means Lee County, we're under the 75. We don't have that many officers, so we would be required to provide at least one position at the minimum starting entry level as determined by the comp board. You'll note in Mr. Cridland's proposal that the legislation gives the locality and the local Commonwealth Attorney the option of submitting a plan to the comp board that is a negotiated agreement, basically, of what the Commonwealth Attorney would be satisfied with and the locality is in agreement to give. And I think he makes a very strong argument there for not going with just an entry-level position. What he's proposing to do is to supplement the salaries of existing staff members for the time involved in this additional review work. He's given you an estimate of the additional time that will be needed to review the tapes. The downside to hiring an entry-level position employee because of the salary rate, he feels that most likely they will hire someone at an entry level. Once they are trained, they'll find another job somewhere else. I think he related information there about how many the Wise County has gone through. They've had 10 attorneys leave that office in the last 3 years. So been quite a bit of turnover in a neighboring county. So he's proposing instead to take a $35,000 supplement to his office, which is considerably less than what hiring one new employee would be. Entry level for a new prosecutor, comp board rate is $56,697, and then you have to add benefits to that. So you're going to be pushing $70,000 or so for a full-time employee. The $35,000 would be about half of that. The way that he's proposed the salary supplements to be broken down between 4 employees in that office, 2 of them are attorneys and are not, they are exempt employees under the Fair Labor Standards Act. So overtime is not an issue for them. They work salary strictly, and that's it. So it doesn't matter what their salary is and the number of hours that they work. But 2 of those employees they're salaried employees, but they're not exempt under Fair Labor Standards Act. And because this would require overtime to be worked on a regular basis, the county's policy is that we do not pay overtime, we provide comp time. To provide comp time to these employees would be counterproductive to what he's trying to accomplish here in having more man hours to devote to review of the tapes. If we just provided them comp time, they would actually be earning overtime and then taking that off at time and a half later, so there'd be no more time available to them through those employees. I think there's a way that we can get there because he is a constitutional officer. I'm not certain that he has to comply with the same policy as the county on not providing comp time, but that would have to be something agreeable with this board. And secondly, we would have to determine exactly how to manipulate the dollars to make it work out on an overtime basis. What I would like to hear tonight, or what my goal is tonight, is to get a direction from the board if you want to pursue this at this option, but give us a little more time as we develop the budget to stroke out exactly what we would have to do for those 2 hourly employees, basically, that would be subject to overtime rules. I think there's a way to get there. We just have to determine exactly how to work that. But I wanted to see what you thought about the proposal itself.
How many were in the campus?
I don't know an exact count. I would say there's at least 20. That would be my guess. And there may be more than that. I can't really say at this point.
I think it would be good to supplement because in the long run it would save money to supplement the employees. I don't know where the figures on the time it would take to review the tapes and the figure per hour and where all that would come into play. I read over the proposal when I got the packet, and I understand what it is. I think it'd be beneficial to go that route, but I don't know if that's an exact.
So what do we need to do?
Well, if you're in agreement to move forward with this proposal at that cost amount, at a $35,000 cost, then we can work out the specifics of exactly how to work that payroll. And if we need, we may need further action of the board to agree to payment of actual overtime. That's the only, if we give the employee just a salary increase to cover the additional work, they're still gonna be working overtime every week. And as such, they would accrue comp time, even though they could even sign a waiver saying they accept the increase in salary as compensation for that overtime. That will not stand up under the Fair Labor Standards Act. They could, at a future date, go back, file a complaint with Fair Labor Standards Act and collect additional pay for time and a half from the county.
So, you and the Commonwealth Attorney will keep us legal?
Yes.
That's what?
Yes, it has to be done legal.
Okay. Okay. I make a motion. You proceed, but you keep us legal.
All right.
Been made. Nobody seconds.
What is it,
What,
what's the discussion?
$182 hours, $35,000. Pretty good money.
I think it's about $192 an hour, what is that?
Well, the other option is, though, we're
Well,
gonna have to.
You're talking about 182 hours per employee.
Per employee?
Yes. Now, that's on the two hourly workers. On the attorneys, I don't know how much time. I mean, he's just lumping them all together here, I think is what he's saying, but that would be 182 hours each, based on the number of hours that he's listed down there.
What is it we're filming and reviewing?
Body cam.
The body worn cameras that the officers wear.
I understand
The
that.
incidents that they incur on the road, their cameras are recording.
But, you know, they don't have to review everything, do they?
Anything involving a potential case. I mean, he gives the details on that of what they're looking for, prior to even completing maybe all the charges that might be placed, or whether they pursue a case or not based on what they see on the cameras.
But it's not everything that's on that camera that they have to review.
Well, again, the time involved in downloading the videos and having to review them and re-review. And I guess the other thing, I'll just throw it out there, in lieu of that, we're gonna pay them $70,000 a year to hire a new employee.
I know, I understand that too.
Yeah, that's what I was looking
Well,
for.
now if that's per employee, that makes it a little bit better.
Well, based on the 3.5 additional hours a week, that's gonna work out,
Is that per person?
yes.
Well, it's not exactly stated.
Yeah, I would think that, I don't say it was clear in the way it was written. It says the amount to 3.5 additional hours per week. It does not say per employee.
Well, it's saying that each employee would, instead of working 9 to 5, they'll work 8:30 to 5:30. Well, they would work an extra half hour every day. They'd come in at 8:30 every day, that's 5 days a week, and stay a half hour late 2 days a week. So that's where you're getting 3.5 hours, and that is per employee involved in this. Not every employee in the office, but the ones involved with this.
Well, now, I mean, we know it's a cheaper road, and if that's
Right.
3.5 per employee, I could,
Yeah, that's a little bit better.
yeah, I could probably go along with that, so.
Well, even if it's not, if you pay somebody time their benefits, you pay them over $70,000 a year, for that amount of time. I don't know what the argument is.
Well, I think it was just a set amount that was already brought up. 35,000 for 180 That's
Well,
not
that's
what
what
it's
I'm
equal up
saying.
to.
What I'm
what
saying
it's-
is if you compare that to that other employee is gonna,
Right.
is that what they're gonna be doing, 182 hours for the year for $70,000? Or are they gonna be doing something else?
No, if it's
You're gonna
on-
hire an additional employee just for that.
According to this, it don't take 800 hours, but you work higher for that. If that's the understanding of it, I think that's a little different. So, can we make a motion to include that is the understanding?
I'll say.
All right. Motion been made second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
But to keep us free.
And add Charles is to keep us legal.
That's always my goal, Mr. Swing. That's always my goal.
All right, litter control interviews. I'm assuming we're looking for date and time.
Yes, sir.
Submitting names.
Yes, sir.
Does anybody have any?
I don't have my name.
How about Monday the 29th? We need to get it done as soon as possible, though.
I can't do it Monday the 29th, I can do it on Tuesday the 30th.
Does Tuesday the 30th work for everybody?
That works for me.
Good.
Charles?
I won't be there. I got an audit I have to meet. But I can be.
We'll set a number of how many of those interviewed.
What do we have, 13?
I think that's right.
Again, that date,
30, May 30.
May 30, okay, I can be there.
What time?
Luke, when?
Oh, I'm sorry, April.
April 30th.
30th. I don't even know why I said May. I guess
April
probably flipped my
30th, okay.
calendar back.
April 30.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
Submit 2 names per, and then we cross over names, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
5
Two.
o'clock.
Two.
I guess do whatever you want to submit, I get, as long as it's not over 2.
If I'm saying that way,
Yeah.
a couple of us submit the same one, that's the number that instead.
Okay.
Does that give you time to
Yeah.
get it out?
When you need them by the name, get them out, probably this Friday.
I can give you mine tonight.
Yeah. No later than this Friday.
I'll give you mine tomorrow. And,
Yeah.
by time, 5? Maybe.
5 o'clock.
April 30.
All right. Next on the agenda, request for closed session, acquisition or disposition of real property.
We need to go through the other stuff first.
Yeah, if we need to push that ahead, Mr. Fee will be staged for that. I have, I've got 2 or 3 other things I'm going to bring to your attention.
So we won't go down through the rest of it first, before we go on closed session. Report and recommendations of county attorney. Reports and recommendations of county administrator.
This is the first thing is a follow-up to last month. The board moved to go ahead and proceed with potential abandonment of the secondary road in front of the Union School property. VDOT, they would have done it the other way, but they've thrown another little wrinkle in there. They'd like a resolution of the notice of intent to abandon a route. So I have that resolution here tonight. If you wouldn't mind, go ahead and to adopt this. This just says you intend to hold a public hearing and consider abandoning it. There will be another formal resolution if you do so after the public hearing. I was able to find out some information. I went down and looked properly. I haven't posted it yet, but I've got till the end of this week to do that. I wanted to confer with VDOT to make sure they hadn't changed their process radically in how you go about this, and it hasn't. But I did find out that the health clinic property does not come all the way over to that road, but yet there is a paved drive over through there that connects to that road, right at the foot of the hill there, about the last 40 foot of the school road. My thought was they're gonna lose that entryway, but I had no information on whether or not they even had the right to be connected there. I did find in the deed, back in 1976, when the health clinic acquired that property, it's a statement included in that deed that says that the parties in the second part, which is the Lee County Health Clinic, Western Lee County Health Clinic, were granted a 20-foot right-of-way from the lot or parcel of land hereby conveyed out to the main state highway, and also the right to pass over the school lot, along with the parties of the first part, which right was heretofore conveyed, or granted to the said parties of the first part by the Lee County School Board. I don't have that actual document where the school board granted that right-of-way, but it may not have actually been a deeded right-of-way. They may just have adopted an agreement with the health council to allow them to connect to that road. So ultimately, the road may not be, the guy from VDOT said what they did is abandon the entire road and then treat that as a private entrance to the health clinic. And that means that the health council would have to coordinate that with VDOT. But I'll find out from him for sure if he wants to do it that way or just take it to that 40-foot mark and abandon it at that point. So I'll work that out between now and then. But if we could have a motion to adopt the notice of intent resolution, then that would be good.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Also, I got an email late this afternoon. Heritage TV has asked if the board, as they have in past years, would consider sponsoring the graduations for Thomas Walker High School and Lee High School on their network. That is a cost of $200, and as they have done the last couple of years, if the board agreed to do this, if you would donate your time to Lee County Tourism, they would double the number of ads, I guess, that you would use on Lee County Tourism during that broadcast. It'd be a cost of $200. Probably.
I'll make that motion to approve that.
Second.
Motion been made second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
And I think that's all I've got for right now.
Reports and recommendations from the board. Does anybody got anything for closed session?
Just a comment before we go to close. I do have the first draft of the budget here to hand to you tonight. Not a lot of detail, just the basics. We'll have a booklet ready for you with all the details of each budget that's not included here. I'll just tell you off the top, this is just request. There's been no work done on it to trim costs down. This is exact departmental and agency requests and the projected revenues. It sits at about a $2.95 million deficit. I think last year our first draft was at just under 2.1 million deficit. So give you some comparison. But I'll give each of you a copy of that before you leave tonight. And we need to think about when you want to start meeting on that.
Can you have those booklets ready to put out there on Thursday before we get them?
Oh, yes.
And have a date draft of that?
She'll have those ready long before that.
Does anybody else?
I just have a question. Dan, have you got any more updates on all of our discussions with the tower update?
Nothing beyond what I emailed you the other day. Because of the high cost that was going to be associated with the proposed foundation for the tower site at Keoki, we met on site up there trying to look for alternate locations that might yield a better foundation plan at a lower cost. Met with the property owners. They researched their mining maps and how that property had been mined and the amount of spoil in different areas, and basically indicated the areas that we would potentially move to and close by probably would not yield anything any better. Made them aware, made the tower representative aware of that. He got back with the manufacturer. They did some additional research, and I think they've come to the determination that they may still be able to work with a similar type foundation to what will be used at Ewing. I'm thinking they may bulk it up a little bit, but rather than having the caissons that would have to be poured deep into the overburden up there, we could still go with basically a pad and pier foundation. But he hasn't got back to me on exactly what that's going to look like. I think the one at Ewing is like 5 to 6 foot deep. Is that? I think that memory serves me well.
Either way, they saw us coming.
Yeah, if we had to do the caissons, we would probably have to be pouring piers 120 to 150 feet deep up there to support that. So at least we're on the right track in bringing that back down to a lower cost and try to get that pad at a reasonable cost to install there.
And we did let them know that we would sign a waiver or whatever it took, because I met with another engineer that was completely in disagreement with their figures, so. That's where we are. All I got.
Bass, Gately? I'll read the paper. Close session.
Okay, make a motion and go into closed session on acquisition of real property under 2.2-3711A.3.